A few years ago, a weird thing happened to me and my friends. I, like most kids my age, was a big user of social media. It was a really important part of our lives. There was really no way to get away from it. One evening, as I was mindlessly swiping through the Facebook app, a new notification caught my eye. It was a direct message from an unfamiliar username, simply stating, "I've been watching you." I hesitated for a moment before deciding to open the message. I assumed it was a joke and thought it was probably one of my friends. When I checked the profile, there was really nothing there. No picture, no posts, nothing. I didn't reply to the message, just in case it was a real creep. I just ignored it. The next day, when I was at school, I was on my phone between classes, and I got another message from the strange profile. This time it was a picture of my parents' house. I dropped my phone to the ground and pretty much freaked out. I didn't know where to turn, so I went to my friend Laura and showed it to her. She was as shocked as me, but she didn't know what to do either. I was pretty sure I had a stalker, so I went to the teacher in my next class and told her what happened. Within a few minutes, I was in the principal's office, and minutes later, the police were there. Part of me thought they were overreacting, but I guess that kind of thing can be pretty serious. I did an interview with one of the cops, and then I was sent back to class. I had to let them keep my phone though. The next few days without my phone were tough, but I knew it was better than having a stalker. After another 2 days, my parents told me what happened. The police tracked the account of my stalker and found the identity behind it. It turned out that the messages were sent by my friend Andrea's mom. I didn't know what to believe. I didn't know her that well, but there was certainly no animosity between us. There was just no way to explain what she did. The police didn't press charges, but the next day, Andrea and her mom came over to my house to apologize. Believe me when I say that it was by far the most awkward thing that I've ever experienced. I watched a 40-something-year-old cry, begging for forgiveness for sending creepy stalker messages to me. I told her it was okay. I just wanted it to be over. I don't think she was a real danger to me, but it was really creepy nonetheless. From that day on, I kept my distance from Andrea and her family. We were friends, but not really good friends, so it wasn't that hard. I still remember this night like it was yesterday, even though it was almost 15 years ago. My name is Jenna, and I was an active Facebook user in the early days of social media. It was a time when we were all still navigating the dangers of connecting with strangers online. I was one of the last of my friends to start using it, but I was still relatively early, compared to the current generation anyway. One evening, I was scrolling through my Facebook feed, and I noticed a request from someone named Marcus. I didn't recognize the name or the profile picture, but curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to accept. I think it was more common back then to connect with random strangers, or maybe I was just more naive. Within minutes, Marcus started messaging me, striking up a conversation as if we were old friends. It was strange, considering we had never interacted before. At first, I thought he might have mistaken me for someone else, but when I brought that up, it seemed not to be the case. There was something about his words that intrigued me. He seemed to know things about me, personal details that I had never shared on Facebook. I was a little creeped out at first, but I had a public profile, and I didn't remember everything that I had shared or deleted since I had been posting, so it was possible that it was nothing. For example, though, he knew my last name, even though I didn't have it on my profile. As the days went on, Marcus's messages became more frequent and intense. He started commenting on my photos, sometimes multiple comments on each. I felt that things had gotten out of control, and I wanted to end things. One night, while I was alone at home, I received a message from Marcus that sent shivers down my spine. It read,
"I know your deepest secrets, Jenna. I've been watching you closely."
Fear gripped me as I looked around my dimly lit room, half expecting to see his shadow lurking in the corners. I didn't reply to the messages. I just closed my computer and didn't turn it on until the next day. When I checked again, there was a message from Marcus claiming that he was joking. I didn't believe him, though. I was terrified, and I wanted nothing to do with him. I decided to confide in my best friend Ash. When I told her about Marcus and his messages, she turned pale. She told me that she had seen some random friend requests too, but she declined them all. I felt so stupid that I had gotten involved with a creepy stranger from the internet. Marcus's messages became more threatening. He began mentioning specific locations where I had been, even those I had never disclosed online. Paranoia consumed me, and I was constantly looking over my shoulders. I didn't know if he was following me in real life, or if he was just able to find those things out by cyber stalking. I hoped it was the latter, but I couldn't be sure. Unable to bear the torment any longer, I finally contacted the police. I provided them with all the evidence I had gathered, hoping they could trace Marcus's online activities and make him stop. Then one day, I received a call from the cops. They told me that they had managed to track down Marcus and apprehend him. He was in my state but a different town, so it's very possible that he was stalking me for real. The danger was worse than I thought. It turned out he was a disturbed individual who had been stalking multiple people through social media. Even to this day, the memory of Marcus and what happened scares me. I've learned a lot about online safety since then, and I never talk to strangers like I used to. It was a chilly autumn evening, and I was scrolling through Facebook Marketplace, looking for a second-hand bicycle. My old one was too small, and it was also in pretty rough shape. Rusty gears and a deformed drivetrain. It wasn't even worth fixing up. Living in a big city, I found it convenient to browse through online listings to find a good deal. There are always new items being posted. Every day it's different. That's when I came across an ad for a high-quality bike, posted by a user named Max. The bike looked fantastic in the pictures, and the price seemed too good to pass up. Max wanted a little over half the new price, but it was 3 years old, so it was a good deal, but not suspicious. I messaged him to ask about the bike. He responded promptly, suggesting we meet at a local park to check it out, so I could possibly buy it. We agreed to meet on Sunday afternoon at the park. It was about a half-hour bus ride from my place. I was planning to ride it home if all went well. When I arrived, I noticed a tall, athletic-looking man, presumably Max, waiting near a bench. There was no bike though. I approached him anyway. I knew it was him because I checked out his Facebook profile. He greeted me with a smile, and we began discussing the bike, even though it wasn't there. He seemed knowledgeable and passionate about cycling, sharing stories of his adventures on the trails. One thing was wrong though, obviously. Where was the bike? I couldn't understand. As soon as I asked, he told me that we had to go to his place to pick it up. That set off alarm bells, because I couldn't understand why he wouldn't bring it. I was thinking that I would try it out at the park, and we would make the deal right then and there. I didn't want to go to some stranger's house if I didn't need to. There was no reason for it. I naively agreed to go with him, though. Max told me that his place was just 5 minutes away, so we started walking. After about 10 minutes, we still weren't there. I turned to Max and asked if we were close. He seemed annoyed and snapped at me. He started yelling at me out of nowhere. I was standing on the sidewalk in the middle of the day, and a grown man was throwing a fit, screaming in my face. I had no idea what set him off, but he seemed to think I was wasting his time. The guy was clearly unstable, and I was too scared to go to his place. I didn't care how good a deal it was. I turned around and started walking away. I didn't want to look back, but I did anyway. He was running after me, still seething with anger. When I saw that, I burst into a run as well. I soon made it to a busier street, and I was able to get away from him. I wish that was the end of it, but it wasn't. When I got home, I opened my laptop and found a pile of messages from Max. The first was apologetic, but then they became threatening. It was weird because the threatening ones came minutes after the ones that were apologizing. I didn't reply to any of them, and just blocked the profile, and I tried to move on. I kept using Facebook Marketplace after that. Another time I was browsing, and I saw an ad for another bike. I was still looking to buy, so I messaged the seller. His name was John. We agreed to meet at a different park, closer to my place. I arrived a little early, and stood at the front waiting near the street. Out of nowhere, I was shoved from behind. I stumbled and scraped my knee on the ground. When I turned around to look, it was Max from before. I was confused for a split second before I realized that I had been set up. Max created a fake profile to lure me into meeting him again. That guy was a serious psycho. I got up and ran away. This time I called the police and reported the whole thing. I should have done that the first time. When the cops arrived, they talked to both of us. My impression was that they could tell Max was crazy right away. He was arrested for shoving me, since he even admitted it to the cops. Fortunately, that was the last I saw or heard from him. It's only been about a month though, so I'm still not sure if it's over yet. It was scary to think that there was a guy out there plotting against me. I'll never feel safe meeting someone from Facebook again, especially for a bike. I'm not falling for that one again. This happened to me when I was in high school, which was around 10 years ago. One day as I was sat in front of the TV, I received a friend request on Facebook. Without much thought, I accepted it, not bothering to check the profile of who added me. I had my profile open to anybody back then, but I never really posted anything, so I thought it was fine. A few days passed, and I completely forgot about the friend request until a message popped up in my inbox. It was from the person who added me. He introduced himself as Ray, and he mentioned that we had a few friends in common. I replied, engaging in small talk. I didn't really question it, because I had some friends from other schools, and it was completely possible that we met at a party, or a concert, or something. I didn't want to be rude if that was the case. Ray seemed friendly and easy to talk to, and our conversation started becoming more frequent. We talked about music, school, and other stuff. Over time, I began to consider Ray as a friend. I would occasionally bring up our supposed mutual friends, but every time I did, Ray would change the subject. Looking back, I know that was suspicious. Nevertheless, we continued talking. Ray brought up the idea that we should meet. I was hesitant, but when he told me that my friend Josh was going to be there too, that put my mind at ease, and I agreed to go. We decided to meet at our school and just hang out and smoke. It was a place familiar to both of us, or so I thought. I arrived at the school in the late evening. It was around 11 p.m. As I walked through the deserted campus, the absence of other people gave the surroundings an eerie vibe. The dimly lit pathways were creepy. Even though my friends and I would meet there often, it was still weird at night. Some parts were well lit at all hours, but we decided to meet in a dark corner near the parking lot in order to avoid being caught. We were technically not supposed to be there. I looked around searching for any signs of Ray or Josh, but I couldn't find anybody. I could hear the sound of the road in the distance, and the occasional car's headlights shone in my eyes, causing me to squint. Suddenly, a man emerged from the darkness. He wore a hood that obscured his face, and also sunglasses, even though it was dark. He introduced himself as Ray, and as he approached, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off about the situation. Ray's presence felt different than what I had imagined. His demeanor seemed distant and guarded, a stark contrast to the warmth and openness in our online interactions. He seemed older. Even though I couldn't see his face, I could sense that he was at least 30 or 35. It was weird, and even more concerning was that he was alone. Josh wasn't there like he promised. Doubts and concerns flooded my mind, but I didn't want to jump to any conclusions. Trying to put aside my reservations, I engaged in conversation, hoping to break the ice and create a more comfortable atmosphere. However, as soon as I heard Ray's voice, I knew he was way too old. His voice was raspy and deep, like a 50-year-old chain smoker. I was too afraid to even ask where Josh was. I thought that might set him off. I didn't want him to know that I was suspicious. Deep down, an instinctual alarm went off, urging me to leave. I made up an excuse claiming that something urgent had come up and I needed to go. As I started walking away, Ray followed me for a short distance. Thankfully, after a few moments, he seemed to give up. I quickened my pace, my heart pounding as I made my way home. It became clear that the person I had been communicating with as Ray was not who he claimed to be. Once I reached the safety of my home, I reflected on this incident. I realized how fortunate I was to get away, but also how stupid I was for falling for it in the first place. All I had to do was call Josh to see if he knew that guy. I didn't even do that. It was beyond naive, and it could have cost me my life. The next day at school, I told some of my friends what happened. Not surprisingly, none of them had heard of Ray, Josh included. When I checked Facebook again, his profile was gone. I still have no idea who that guy was, or what he would have done to me if I didn't leave.